Hey, it's TDA, and today I want to optimize our dog fog farm over here, because honestly, although it works pretty well, and I'm having a lot of fun seeing all of these dark fog units die over here, I don't think this is actually the optimal version, and as you know, this channel is all about optimization, so let's get to it and make this thing work a lot better than it does now. Now, actually, I had to re-record this episode, because pretty much by the time I was editing the episode, the update came out, or actually found out there was an update coming out that kind of made the entire setup that I made kind of invalid. So, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about, obviously I'm talking about the pile sorters being included in the game, but actually also a couple of other things. So, let's get to it. So there are a couple of things that we need to do in order to actually optimize the entire farming planet, but first things first, let's start demanding some supermagnetic rings on our mole planet over here. We should be getting them from the farm. I'm not getting any of them in right now. That might be because I have set the vessels to 100% load. Yep, just get in the tiny amounts that we get for now. That will work just fine, thank you. And I have the distributor over here to distribute them to a logistics distributor. That's a lot of distributing in a couple of sentences. And the main purpose of that is to actually make sure that these Mark III belts are going to get processed. And we'll just let this work for a moment. We have plenty of Mark II belts, so there's no belt shortage or anything like that. And upgrading belts is super fast and super easy. Now, would you look at that massive amount of rockets that are being used in order to actually defend my base? Well, not defend my base necessarily, because it doesn't need that much defending, but we're basically just firing missiles at single units over here. And as you can see, we're using a lot of missiles, and I can speak from experience when I say we're actually going to run out of missiles really fast this way. It's not as bad as when you're trying to conquer a planet. You're also using a lot of missiles there, but there is pauses in between, and honestly at some point the planet is conquered, so you don't spend any missiles. We spent a few hours firing missiles at these things, and a few hours in this game is nothing. Then we're going to run out unless we're starting to mass produce missiles, but there is really no need to do that because we can find a better solution. Rather than spending a billion resources on finding a way to kill these things, why don't we use something that's completely infinite, and that is energy. So we have laser turrets available to us. We have had those available to us for a very long time as well. But I think if we take one or two of these rows of these turrets, and especially considering they're actually being powered by these signal towers, these should be able to hold off most of these units, especially if they don't come in huge waves, but they just come in a steady flow. And yeah, as long as we have enough power to power these things, we should be fine. And this is completely free. We don't need to bother with anything like missiles. As you can see, there's a lot of these missile launchers are actually out of missiles already. And we might actually be able to remove a large portion of this defense line as well, because right now it's just doing nothing. Okay, I'll save you sitting through me building a lot of laser turrets, but as you can see right now, these things are doing a lot of damage, and well, looks like we're doing pretty fine. We're actually doing some damage to the base thanks to the missiles, so that's something that's going to give me extra threat as well. All in all, this seems to be working just fine, so now what I need to do is go to the missile turrets and make sure that we are no longer firing at the ground. Like this. We're only firing at space. We also do not want to fire at upper air, because if you do that, then these missile turrets are going to shoot down these relays, and that's not really what we want. Which one did I set? This one. And I can just copy-paste the settings to all the other missile turrets. Now that's a little tedious, but it needs to be done. And that also means that these missile turrets will no longer be wasting ammunition unless we're actually being attacked from space. So every now and then it's good to check back in on your old facilities, because I was wondering where all my missiles were not coming from. That's not a sentence. Anyway, what I mean is to say, I was wondering why my missile supply that I was getting on my farming planet was so low. Now, part of the reason was that, as you can see, huge amount of my copper supply has run out. This is not really supplying me any copper whatsoever anymore. There's a couple of other nodes here that's about to run out, but for the moment, in terms of my missile production, I'm not getting in any copper. Now, as you know, I kind of like repurposing my older facilities, and you can do so easily by just putting an ILS, requesting some ore from whatever place you're actually mining it from. As you can see, we have plenty of ore coming in. and then hooking them up to the existing belts. And as you can see, voila, all my copper production is now back in gear. I just to make sure I actually hooked up all the existing copper to the actual ILS. Now, honestly, you might consider doing the same thing for the iron while you're at it. I haven't actually done that over here, but I'm not too worried about that. The iron is not really close to running out, so I'll still have 300,000 left, so that'll take a while. And as you can see in my my missile production is now back up and running. That might not seem like a lot, but this is a lot of missiles that can be fired at the enemy, and well, that's going to make my life a lot easier in terms of defending my planets. Okay, so back on the farming planet, I have another problem, because as you can see, there's some random stray units that are flying around and trying to kill my existing bases. Now, they're not really making any progress because all these battlefield analysis bases are just repairing whatever they try to shoot at. But because I turned the rockets off, as you can see right now, they can actually just fly around and do whatever they want. And if enough of these accumulate, they will turn into a problem. So there's a couple of ways we can handle that. So first of all, you can just put down some more of these laser turrets. Again, they will get repaired by the battlefield analysis bases, and they will take out the existing strays that we have. But the real thing that we need to do in order to make sure that, well, the robots are not going anywhere we don't want them to, is make sure we replace these signal towers by something that doesn't actually attract the enemy units. Just replacing them with simple power towers is more than sufficient. Of course, we do want to make sure that we don't break up our energy network, because we are heavily relying on these geothermals to actually power our defense. But doing so without making use of signal towers, and we could take down these battlefield analysis bases while we're at it, is going to make sure that we don't have all these stray units trying to attack random parts of our base. Okay, it kind of hurts me to look at all this mess the battlefield analysis bases are leaving behind, but we can clean that up just by pressing this button. That's a lot of resources gone. But I can't be arsed to fly around, collect them all, and try to put them to use. It's just way too much work for what you're getting out of that. The whole point here is that we now have everything connected, or at least a part of this connected. I'm still working on that and making sure that there's no more stray units. However, we also have a third base popping up. So there is a third, yep, over here, there's a third relay station now on my planet, because I am no longer shooting stuff from the air. I'm not firing at either high air or firing on space, but apparently the relay station was able to sneak in between. So that means I'm going to have to work on shields now in order to make sure that there's no stray relay stations landing on my planet. Okay, there we go. I removed pretty much all the signal towers and battlefield analysis bases that were just there because I used them when I was conquering the planet. I left in a couple of them, especially here around this specific geothermal and this one over here, because every now and then there's just a unit that decides, hey, I'm getting so close, let me fly out and attack. As you can see, I'm not entirely sure why this is happening, but if one of these strays out a little bit too far, it will start to attack this geothermal. So there's a couple of turrets just to take those units out. And you can see that happening a little bit more actively over here. This geothermal is so close to the base that it just keeps attracting some units. Now, but other than that, we cleared everything up. What I also did is put down some shield generators. So there you go. As you can see, we have covered pretty much the entire planet in shields. It says 85%, but I'm pretty sure that even though this is not counted as covered, because everything else is covered, so it must be this area over here. That's the 15% that says it doesn't cover. I'm pretty sure that there's still not going to be any relay stations landing here, because, well, as you can see, there is still a shield there. So I'm not entirely sure why it's not counting that, but we should be good, and we should not see any more stray relay stations landing on our planet. So that means we can now focus on upgrading our fog farm without having to worry about being attacked from behind. Now, in order to do so, we're going to use this new awesome sorter. I'm so happy about these things, called the pile sorter. Now, for those of you that missed it, there's actually a new update that came out last week. I made a video about that, so you might have seen that already. That introduced this new item, and this is awesome. Let me show you what it does. Well, actually, it's not going to do too much, but we're going to place it and then upgrade it. There we go. It's actually unlocked together with the automatics piler, but it works slightly different. So we can actually connect belts like this, assuming we use the correct sorter. I'm not used to it yet. Apologies about that. There we go. Of course, we need to make sure it's powered. And then for now, it's just going to focus as a sorter. So this is not going to do anything in particular. However, once we start upgrading it, and let's just cancel these upgrades and queue up the next one. Let me show you. Upgrade, over here. This is actually going to stack units for us. So similar to what the automatic piler did. But now you have it in sorter form, which is much more convenient. It actually fits closer on belts. And it can do so automatically. What you can actually do is have a feedback sorter like this. This will actually stack up units, and then because at some point it won't be able to stack it anymore, then the other units will continue on and it will restack them once again. And this will actually stack things up completely to 4 units on top of each other. Even just 2 of these will do that trick. Actually, just 1 of these will do the trick if you don't have too many different units on the belts, which we do because of course we are getting all kinds of random crap in here. But yeah, the whole point is that this is going to stack everything for us, making our belt 4 times more efficient than what it would normally be. And that is of course pretty useful when we're getting in hundreds upon hundreds of different items per minute. Now I wanted to show you that stacking in progress, and well, the problem was I wasn't actually getting any science research going. And well, the problem apparently is not yellow science like it usually is, not even red science, it's the blue science, because one of my other nodes ran out over here. Now again, that is nothing an ILS can fix, so we have another one of those up and running, and that also means that my blue science production over here is never going to stop. I just upgraded these assembly machines for good measure, and as you can see we now have backed up production lines again. Now I could put in something else, but honestly this is going to be just fine because we have a couple of other things I want to do. Because actually defending this base is going to be a lot easier now we have access to a new type of turret. And well, not sure what's happening here, but the new type of turret is the jammer tower, and this is actually going to slow down units for us at the cost of consuming some jamming capsules. Now these things are actually not cheap to make. So initially I was like, is this worth it? But I actually think it is, because if we can slow down the units that are approaching our base, we can actually maybe do away with some more of the ammunition spending, things like the implosion cannons, and completely rely on the laser turrets. Now we could probably do that either way, but these things just make that a little bit more fail-proof than it would be without them. So, I've started to upgrade the jamming just because I can, and I also made just a tiny little production facility right next to my fog farm that was actually going to produce the EM capsules. Oh, it's actually jamming capsules. Well, it's EM damage anyway. Damage? Disruption? I don't know. I'm still getting used to these things, I guess. I'm also making some turbines over here because we don't really have any other use for the motors and the coils, so might as well just use the ones we're actually getting on this planet and make something useful out of them, and then redistributing those to make some more use out of them. And now we just need to feed those into a defensive line. Now I already prepared a belt over here, however I don't think this belt is actually at the correct distance, so let me fix that. There we go, I have a couple of jamming towers up and running here now. There's no actual ammo in there, so that means that I probably forgot to set the output on this logistics station. Yep, I did. Oh, it's actually not in there yet because I built this before I had the recipe. That was the problem. Okay, so capsule, you're over there. New things, need to find out where they are, and then I still need to set this belt like so. And now we have them coming into this belt, and we should see these powering up pretty soon. Now actually we do need to make sure there is a little bit of a difference in between when these fire off, because there's no point in having them all fire at the same time. They will slow down the same units. But if you make them alternate a little bit, like so, as you can see, they fire at a different speed now. They will slow down any units that come close. And you can, if you look closely, you can see kind of a glowing effect across these things. They actually only get slowed for a tiny amount of time, so it's just half a second, plus 10% because I just upgraded them. I just upgraded them again. Oh, it was already in there. Anyway, it's just a tiny little upgrade, so this is not going to slow them down for very long, but actually just having them slow down for a tiny bit of time, just make sure that they don't get as close to your base as they would normally get, and you have that much more time to kill them. So I put down some battlefield analysis bases for good measure, just because I can, and do you hear that? no more explosions. I actually took out the implosion cannons, and we're able to kill all of this stuff now with just the laser turrets like I've intended all along. Now you could probably again do that without these jamming towers, but these just make it a little bit safer because these bases are still upgrading and the units will be becoming stronger. All in all, it's just better to have a bit of safety built in rather than just relying on whatever you have. Now, I can actually just place back in the implosion cannons at any point in time, so that's why I'm leaving the belts up and running, just in case I need them. But for now, I think we're doing fine without. Now, this is completely personal preference, but I do actually recommend that you turn off any items, especially the early on items that you can easily produce yourself, just to make sure that you're not kind of bogging down your belts with stuff that's not really of true value. I mean, it's cool to get some more iron ingots or copper ingots and things like that, especially considering you're probably going to need a lot of them while you're scaling things up. But honestly, you're better off making sure you actually get in your rings and your particle broadband and stuff like that, rather than the items that you can easily just put up a few miners, a couple of smelters, and get them yourself. Now, you could have the same argument for everything, but I hope that you understand that things like titanium alloy do not have the same value as the iron ingots. So, if you do that, what you will actually see is that the battlefield analysis bases can actually be drained because you're not getting as many drops anymore, you're not overflowing your battlefield bases. And for that reason, I actually started to drain some of the bases on the side, just so you have a better spread of things coming in. Now, what you will also see is that once you start upgrading your sorters a little bit, your pilar sorters, as you can see over here, you can actually see there's a lot of stacking going on these belts already. They're going a little bit fast, so let me pause them for a moment. As you can see, I've upgraded my my pilar sorters to be able to stack up to 3 right now, so you can actually upgrade them once more. I'm doing that over here to have them stack all the way up to 4. You don't need the stackers anymore. I actually don't have the ILS stacking yet enabled, but it's all working like intended, and this actually makes the throughput on this system a lot higher. Now, you do have to kind of watch for things getting completely full, especially these items that you're not using in large quantities, because once any of these belts get full, this can actually bog up your entire system like it's working right now. So there is a couple of downsides to having a fog farm. Or at least you can't rely on it too much, because there are things that can easily break down if you're not careful. But still, we're getting a ton of items now. Let's see, let me just give you an idea of what we actually already have in here. So we have 2,000 titanium glass in here. We have 1,000 reinforced thrusters. Super useful once you start making rockets and things like that. 1,000 strange matter is actually super valuable as well. Well, I actually think I have unipolar magnets as well, and I haven't even left my system. Yeah, we have 3,000 of that. I can't use it yet because we don't have the technology. But those are all arguments to make in favor of making a dog farm as well. So you get a lot of really valuable stuff really early on. For example, I also have the other rare materials that you need for the other miner. I'm not entirely sure where it is. There it is. It says I have 0, but that's because I'm already exporting it to the other planet. I think I showed you in the last episode. All in all, this just means that you're getting in a huge amount of very valuable stuff for free. Well, not entirely for free. You do need to set this up, and it does take a lot of work. So honestly, by this time, I could have completed the game if I wasn't playing on hard mode. But yeah, if it's really worth it, it's completely up to you. But there are definitely some arguments in favor and against that. And just look at the amount of valuable resources that we're getting in here. This is Casimir crystals coming in, some other stuff here that I'm still offloading. Oh, look, this battlefield analysis base is actually empty, which might be a reason for you to say, okay, but then you should probably start enabling some of the other things again. Yes, but keep in mind that I'm still offloading things from these other bases as well. However, yeah, I do think that's an argument to maybe turn on a few things again. There's no point in trying to optimize what you get in terms of the amount of drops, because any drops that you disable will simply not drop, but you won't actually get anything to replace it. So don't think that you can kind of focus farm, for example, broadband by turning everything else off. That actually doesn't work. You'll still get the same amount of broadband, you just won't get anything else. So let me enable a couple of things that are always useful to have, like foundations and combustible units. What else? What else? There's no such thing as having too much of what's. Graphite, probably. And silicon is probably a good idea as well. And I think I'm pretty low on copper. And let's just enable iron as well. I'm not entirely sure if we need all of that, but again, you can always turn off and on whatever you need. This is a global filter, by the way, so you can do this from any planet. So if you forever, for whatever reason, think, oh, I'm really low on, let's say, steel, and you just turn that on, and at least your fog farm will be helping you out with that. I could look at this for hours, and I'm actually staring at this for a couple of minutes already. It's a thing of beauty, but as you can see, we're defending ourselves against level 24, soon to be level 25 bases, and we're having zero issues because, well, as you can see, this is working like intended, and that's actually without these jammers doing really their job because I'm not getting in enough. I think it's hydrogen, actually, of all things. Yep. So that's something that's super easy to fix, especially once we get a couple of orbitals up. So I think this is pretty much an optimized fog base. Now remember, I actually also made sure there's no way the enemy can land on this planet anymore. And the waves of ships that the enemy is sending at us are no issue. As long as you don't run out of power and as long as you don't run out of missiles, and the missiles we can't pretty much run out of because we're only using them to use at the vessels. There you go. We're actually attacking this planet now because the other planets are using less energy than this one. But as you can see, these waves are going to be taken out really quickly. They can't do anything against our shields. So yeah, there is really no way to lose at this point anymore unless you do something really, really stupid. There's a lot of redundancy in my system already, so I don't see that happening ever. And look at those shields just doing their job. This is, honestly, this is pretty awesome to look at. Look at those lasers, look at those missiles. And we don't have to worry about being defended at all. So, I'm actually thinking that I want to start working on some new blueprints to incorporate the new sorter pilers, to incorporate the new technologies. But I'm thinking about maybe doing that from a new playthrough. Look at my FPS tanking because of all the visual effects. Let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, there's also actually a couple of new games coming out soon that I'm really excited about and that I want to share with you guys as well. So there's going to be a lot of new content on the channel. So make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I hope to catch you in the next one.